Hey guys, it's Alexis, aka The Sloth Reader, and I'm here today to do my monthly recommendations video. My monthly recommendations video for the month of December, sorry, that's weird, it's not October, is to recommend your favorite new to you authors of 2016. These can be debut authors, or these can be authors who just happened to write something and you finally read it this year. And I have to be honest, I have a bunch, okay? I literally have read so many wonderful books this year. I think this is my best reading year I've ever had. So I kind of definitely have a lot of authors to mention. And so for that reason, I have 10 books here. And I'm just going to kind of go through them pretty fast because, like I said, there's just so many of them. The first one I'm going to mention is actually a debut author for 2016, and that is Callie Wallace. Of course, I read Shallow Graves back in October, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the diversity in this book, and I just loved her writing style, how it kind of goes a lot back and forth between the past, present, and future of the characters in this book, and she has this little narrative at the end of the book about rape culture, and I absolutely loved it. And I really love this book, and it made me very excited to pick up pretty much anything Callie Wallace writes in the future. The next author that was new to me this year, but not new to the world, and that was Marie Lu. I read the Legend trilogy back in October as well. I haven't read the Young Elite yet, but I don't own an actual physical copy of Legend, so I just figured I'd grab this one. But I loved Legend way more than I ever thought I would. I actually was pretty much of the opinion that I was going to be really unimpressed with it, and I actually grew to really, really love it. I really, really love the characters that Marie Lu creates. I absolutely love June and Day in that particular story, and I love the way that she writes, and so I'm hoping that maybe this series will continue on, and I will love it just as much as I loved Legend. The next one is going to be a huge, huge surprise to most of you. That's going to be J.K. Rowling. For the year of 2016, one of my goals was I wanted to read all of the Harry Potter books. Unfortunately, I let that challenge get away from myself, so I'm not going to be able to complete those by the end of the year, but I absolutely loved them. I watched all the movies growing up, so I'm still familiar with Harry Potter, but I wasn't actually familiar with J.K. Rowling's writing style. And I actually really love it. I like how whimsical it is, and then the next minute it'll be like super serious and super dark. And I really love just how planned out every little thing in this series is. Everything relates to something, and it might not show up in this book, but it'll show up 3 books later. And so I really, really loved it, and reading the Harry Potter series has been so enjoyable for me. And it's definitely risen to be one of my all-time favorite series, and I can see so easily why people pretty much always just get obsessed with this series because I think it's beautifully written. The next author I'm going to mention is another debut for 2016, and that is Meredith Russo, the author of If I Was Your Girl. Meredith Russo is a trans woman who wrote this beautiful book about a trans teen named Amanda. And I am so excited to see where Meredith Russo goes next. That's kind of why she was one of my favorite authors of this year, is I'm just so excited to see what future projects she comes up with. And hopefully they'll all contain some aspect of the trans community, but even if they don't, I'm still interested to see how she takes her own life experiences and puts them into books. And I hope her future novels will contain trans characters just because, yay, diversity, and we need more trans characters. But I just really loved this book, and I loved a lot of the stuff it had to say about family and a lot about the duality of sexuality and faith and the South, and I just think that Meredith Russo has a lot to say, and I'm excited to see what she has to say next. The next author that was new to me this year is one that is very well beloved, and that is Maggie Stiefvater. I marathoned the entire Raven Cycle series at the beginning of this year in preparation for the Raven King, and I mean, me, like many other people, I'm very obsessed with the series. I love it. It's interesting because Maggie Stiefvater definitely has a very unique writing style. It's kind of ethereal and whimsical, but This book is not the most best well-written book to me, but Maggie Stiefvater is a standout when it comes to creating characters. Every single character in this book is so well thought out, and they feel so real and alive, and I mean, this is probably my favorite cast of characters in any book ever. I love the Raven Boys and Blue and the Women of 300 Fox Way, and that is what made me love this book and Maggie Stiefvater so much, is just that the characters that are created here are just absolutely phenomenal. The next author that I discovered in 2016 was Nicola Yoon. I read both Everything, Everything and The Sun Is Also a Star this year, and they were both absolute wonderful reads for me. I did like The Sun Is Also a Star better just because I loved so much of the conversation that it had to do with race and being an immigrant in America and fate, but I loved Daniel and Natasha in this book, but I absolutely loved both of Nicola Yoon's books, and she has a very unique way of writing. In Everything, Everything, there's a lot of infographics that are kind of throughout the book. In this one, you get a lot of perspectives that are just past Daniel and Natasha, and it also has a lot to do with history, and I loved that. I loved the way this book was written. It made it so much more interesting to me. And so I'm so excited to see what Nicola Yoon does next, because I'm like, she has this unique way of writing. How is she going to apply that to her future projects? The next author I'm going to mention is one that I have become pretty obsessed with since reading the book I'm about to hold up. And she is kind of polarizing. People either really, really love her, like me, or people are just like, I don't like anything she writes, and that is Kendare Blake. I read Three Dark Crowns back in September, and it's one of my new favorite obsessions. Pretty much, if you loved this book and you want to talk to me about it, I will talk your ear off. I loved it. And I've subsequently picked up a few more Kendare Blake books because of how much I love this one, and I've loved all of them. And so I'm so excited to see anything pretty much Kendare Blake comes out in the future, because she's one of my new favorite authors, and I just loved this book so much. It almost felt perfectly tailored to my taste. And so, yeah, I'm definitely excited for 2017 to come around so I can see where this one goes. The next author who was new to me this year wrote one of my other favorite books of the year. Actually, I pretty much assume that every book I've held up so far has been a favorite book of this year, and that is Vengeance Road by Erin Bowman. This book literally awaked in me a love for Westerns that I never knew I had. I pretty much read this book and I was like, I want to devour every Western ever. Like, I went and watched Western movies, and I was like, oh, let's watch Hell on Wheels. That's kind of Western-y. And then I was like, let me pick up every Western YA novel. I haven't actually, but I touch them every time I go to the bookstore. But I loved this book. I loved the characters in this book, especially the main character. I loved Kate Thompson so much. I mean, she is just such a badass, and I just loved a lot of the Western aspects of this book, and I'm so excited she's writing a companion novel because I just want more Western, especially from Erin Bowman, because she knocked it out of the park. The next author I'm going to mention is someone who wrote one of my other favorite series of this year that I discovered, and that is C.S. Pacat, the author of the Captive Prince trilogy. It's no surprise I love this trilogy. I read all 3 books in the span of like 72 hours because I was just in love with them. But I really like the way C.S. Pacat writes. I love her style of world building, where she uses the kind of actions of characters and the mentality of a lot of things to kind of really add to the world building. And of course, I love the way that she writes from the main character's perspective, where it's very biased. In this particular book, you know, we follow Damon. Well, the narrative is really biased because we're reading from third person, but it's Damon's third person perspective. So I liked that. I liked that a lot of the things we didn't know, she didn't tell us, because we're supposed to be following along like Damon's shadow. So I thought that was a very interesting way to write this particular book. And of course I loved the characters she creates. I love Damon. Damon is one of my fictional baes of the year. He was just absolutely fantastic, and I loved the relationship between Damon and Laurent, obviously, and also even some of the side character relationships and the side characters I really grew to love, and I want C.S. Pacat to write something in 2017, because the idea of not having anything from her is just, I can't do it, I can't. The last author I'm going to mention is one of my all-time favorite authors. I will pick up anything she writes, regardless of what it's about, because I love the way she writes, and I love the characters she creates, and literally I have this shelf section that's straight up dedicated to her, and all my little merch I got to represent, and that is V.E. Schwab, author of the Shades of Magic series, which is one of my all-time favorite series. I read both books 1 and 2 this year, earlier, back in January, February, and I just love Victoria Schwab so much. I love her writing style, the words she chooses, and her characters, of course, and I just think that some of the things she comes up with are so clever. Like, she takes these almost simple concepts and then she just runs with them, and she really makes them her own. And I love how many elements are in her stories, but they're all well fleshed out. Nothing feels half-assed, and I really, really, really love that. And I love V.E. Schwab, and I've met her, and she's the nicest lady ever. She's so nice, and V.E. Schwab, man, if you haven't read a V.E. Schwab book, she has so many different ones that are so different from each other, and there's got to be something in there to appeal to you. I mean, they're kind of dark, but they're funny, and they're sexy, at least this one is, in my opinion, and just V.E. Schwab, man, I love her. I love her. Alright guys, so that was the last monthly recommendation video for the year. Where has 2016 gone? I graduate in a couple of weeks, December 17th from college, and I feel like crying, both tears of anxiety and happiness, and it's just, this year has been crazy, and so much has happened, and for good and bad, and this has really been my first consistent year on YouTube, with the booktube community, and I've enjoyed it so much, and you'll hear me say this pretty much in every other video I put out in December, but thank you guys so much for just being awesome and amazing, and for all of you who have subscribed to me. You guys are just absolutely amazing, and you guys should let me know down below what some of your new favorite authors of 2016 are, or if you've discovered any of these authors, or if you want to just yell at me and be like, Alexis, why is it taking you so long to read Harry Potter? What is wrong with you? I have a valid reason, and I will see you guys soon with another video. Bye!